What is going on, everybody? We are back for week 6 of the PWD. That is the Pokemon World Domination Draft League. My week 6 opponent is a great friend of mine, Coach Shade of Defeat of the Straw Hat Crocodiles. As you can see at the beginning of the video, we are linking up for our battle. My draft battle videos are recorded after the fact of the match, so a lot took place that I'm trying not to discuss, and I'm gonna try to keep it spoiler free and play by play style. But definitely big shout out to Coach Shade of Defeat. He's an active streamer, always streaming different games. He's been playing a variety of games with friends as well as Pokemon. For this battle, as usual, we are extensively prepared with a lot of matchup knowledge coming into this. So, um, without revealing too much, we're geared up and ready to go against Shade. But I guess I can talk lead matchup. The initial plan, of course, is to establish, our stealth rocks, get our hazards out. We did bring um, a solo stealth rock setter, but the way I like to think of it, at least on this roster, is that I brought one dedicated setter. This would be the Miltank lead. I have rapid spin, which doesn't come in play because Coach Shade doesn't bring any hazards of his own as a rapid spinner. Because Steelix, a very reliable hazard setter, is on the Straw Hat Crocodiles roster, and I, of course, am going to prepare for the entire roster, and that was something I was prepared for as a lead. And then I have like kind of the mid-ground option of Xatu, which can magic bounce his Steelix hazards back to his side of the field, and also at the same time keep them off of mine. So going into the first play, Shade starts off with a questionable but logical. I wouldn't say questionable. I think that the proper way to assess this play is that it's too conservative. Shade goes for the Pyro Ball, even though I've shown a preference for thick fat Miltank during my season, and my battle with Coach Bloud, in the video recap, it came up multiple times how I was playing around his Gigantamax Cinderace's fire attacks because the G-Max form of those attacks would be able to ignore my thick fat ability. We really eat those hits when he goes for the fire move, which causes him to go for the more reliable or the more damaging high jump kick. But I brought the tech protect on my Miltank just for that. Got to give a shout out to my friend Shiny Shuriken, who helped me a lot in prep and in playing multiple matches against this lead, and knowing that it could begin to set up boosts in its Dynamax form on turn 1 was definitely a key point of practice. So that was one of the things that we eventually found as a working strategy to remove Milk Drink from the Miltank and put on Protect just to get some free damage off of the high jump kick. And because we brought that tech, Miltank is able to pick up a great value kill, because if you think about, one of my lower tier Pokemon taking out debatably the most threatening Pokemon on Shade of Defeat's team, I'll take that any day. As well as getting up Stealth Rocks, which was its intended purpose in its battle. You know, Miltank's done more than everything I brought it for. And at this point, Shade's going to go out to his Bravery. I tested against multiple variants of Bravery, including bulky, heavy-duty boots, defog, and he came in, he took rocks damage, so it wasn't boots, but it could still been defog. I have noticed that Shade tends to favor an offensive variant, but I also have brought Choppleberry for the high jump kick, and it ended up triggering on the close combat against the Bravery instead. I was being very careful not to switch out too soon, though, because depending on which set he would have brought and how he played around this, I didn't want him to defog as I tried to go into my Zatu in order to try to set up my screens or anything of that sort, because I could have magic bounced his defog back onto the Bravery, lowering the evasion of the Bravery, triggering his Defiant, which he could be sheer force, but he could also be Defiant, and raising his attacks to 2 stages at the small cost of an evasion stage. Instead, we scout out the close combat, we take it with the Choppleberry, we switch over to our Aegis Slash because it's, pretty safe play to go for that a second time. Obviously, it was going to do a lot more damage the second time. And at that point, we're able to set up an Autotomize and get our second kill of the game. So here we see him go to Toxtricity. We're going to scout with King Shield because we're very suspicious that this could be a Zoroark instead of a Toxtricity. Not to get ahead of the video, but he reveals Dark Pulse here, so that turns out to be true. And knowing that Toxtricity doesn't get access to Dark Pulse, it has to be Zoroark. And so then we go to basically what we brought, especially in a situation where Coach Shade didn't bring Steelix. That definitely reduced this Pokemon's role to a dedicated Zoroark check. It was, you could say it was not the best against his team overall. It's Thunder Punch. It has coverage in Thunder Punch for Blastoise, and it has Earthquake for the likes of Toxtricity, Cinderace. But like Hitmonchan's attack is not great. His special defense really is very good, as well as it's carrying an Assault Vest. But like the Sableye and other threats, basically it doesn't have as good of a matchup as it does against anything else against the Zoroark. So as I said, I do extensive prep for these matches and make sure to prepare for the whole 11 Pokemon roster, but some of the things that I had brought Hitmonchan for didn't come, most notably Steelix. He begins to start working the Sableye, which the set is very effective against my team, and I end up sacking my Miltank here actually because my amount of options against this Sableye are pretty low. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, Sableye was a expendable Pokemon at this point. He had done all the work that I brought him to do and then some. So I was cool with making that sacrifice at that point, and one of my main points of interest at this stage in the battle was to scout out his entire move set, or at least scout out his move set enough in order to find out if he had Calm Mind or some form of setup move. With Calm Mind, maybe over Will-O-Wisp or Recover. I don't know. I would probably say Will-O-Wisp. I know that's a little limiting. With Calm Mind, the set's versatility gets limited, but its ability to threaten for the win is increased. When I scout out enough turns to find out that it doesn't have Calm Mind, I know that basically I am very challenged to break this thing, especially when it has a substitute setup, but I am not under pressure to break this thing. Basically, Shade is slowly playing himself into a defeat at this point into the game, because obviously we are playing a 20-minute timer, and I'm not going to get into the controversy of the match, because me and Shade are good friends, and none of this would have happened if it wasn't for that friendship. Like, if we was just two content creators that were more or less strangers, or maybe just acquaintances, we wouldn't have considered trying to go beyond the 20-minute timer with this matchup. We did try to go beyond the 20-minute timer of this matchup without directly saying why or how. We did, though. Because, yeah, at this point, commentary gets a little more difficult as well. Shade is setting up substitutes. I set up my screens. And I don't really want to spoil, because it's not everything it appears to be. Shade actually does end up picking up one more kill, and yeah, so not to have the long pause in commentary there, I apologize for that, but like I had said, it's hard to really break it down what's going on any further than what I had already said about my position, and knowing that I'm not under a lot of pressure by this set. It is at this point in the game that Shade starts making up for some of the plays that I made earlier on. Like most notably the taking down the mill tank that had done a good amount of work against his team. Kind of, you could definitely say unexpectedly did a good amount of work against his team. And yeah, with that said, he also burns my Hitmonchan at this stage in the game, which uh, um, I mentioned before. His attack stat you know, I had ran choice banded Hitmonchan earlier in the season because it was the only item. No Iron Fist Life Orb. Nothing could get the kind of damage I needed from this Pokemon. Is definitely its number one point of criticism, that its attack stats are, well, they leave something to be desired. And getting the burn off on my Hitmonchan, like, probably, I mean, it definitely, because my Drain Punch was just barely pulling up the Oko on his Zoroark, and that's without HP investment or defense, so the likelihood of him surviving and living to take a third Drain Punch is, a real possibility at that point, and that kind of makes him maybe able to win the 1v1. I don't know, but it makes it a lot closer. We do a little dancing around. I make one final good prediction on Coach Shade by bringing out the Tangrowth the turn that he goes for Blastoise. And I do know that it is Blastoise because even if it was only Stealth Rocks, I know that Zoroark had came out into the battle and wouldn't be completely at full health. So the same thing when he goes to his Toxtricity again. I know that it's not another Zoroark fake. It was at full health when it came out, and Zoroark was not. Had I made the full prediction and gone for the Tangrowth into Earthquake, I would have definitely had a more commanding lead. Instead, I make the prediction like half a turn too late. I go to my Aegislash again, which definitely gives Shade more options to play around than just making the hard read and going Tangrowth on the Blastoise and being like, well, Blastoise isn't going to stay in here. I'm clicking Earthquake. Because of that, trying not to get too ahead of the video, but Shade is able to trigger his Gigantamax here. Gmax Toxtricity, it definitely is not the number one Gmax in the league. It's a very powerful and potent Gmaxer with its ability to spread status and everything else. But because of its speed tier, it's not exactly ideal. And the base speed matchup here is actually 60 to 76, so like it doesn't play a huge factor against Aegislash. As a matter of fact, him going for Gigantamax, as I already said, shows that Aegislash was not the ideal play. Like, I don't lose a ton. I get some damage off on Toxtricity for sure, but I didn't have to lose a Pokemon there. It could have been played better. It's not the worst of plays, but it's not the best of plays. It puts us at 4-4, which is important, knowing that Sableye has burnt a lot of time off of the clock already, and there's the 3-minute timer again. So, we're both probably thinking at this point in the match that we know which way this is going. I did pack the Earthquake on my Hitmonchan. I'm sure that at that percentage, Man, honestly, in G-Max form, it's still debatable because I know that it doesn't have a lot of power behind it. But maybe at that percentage, he probably could have took it out with Earthquake. Shade was probably thinking the same thing and ends up going to Sableye. However, with that being said, he had just used his Dynamax. I still had mine. And in conversations with Shade after the match, when we tried to recreate and well, not just not like both replay and finish this match on Showdown, which was basically vetoed by the commissioner and the rest of the league, uh, deemed just not consistent with the way we have done it the rest of the season, and that's fair. I was just trying to be straight up about it. If he wanted to dispute the timer loss, then that's fine by me because we can finish it out. But apparently, we can't, and that's probably more consistent. For what it's worth, for Shade's due credit, he totally outplayed me when we went to Showdown. I played terrible. Shade played well. He was able to win 3-0 from the 4-4 position that we're currently in. But when it comes to this part, and of course, this is before we do agree to take it to Showdown, at this point in the match, I'm thinking that, well, I've never seen anybody say something, if a matches went to timer, it's always went to timer, right? So I was thinking that Shade had made a mistake by playing his Sableye as heavily as he did, and also have using his Gigantamax already in the battle. Because I basically, the main reason that I go to Tangrowth at this stage is because it's the Pokemon on my team with the most hit points. And I know that the battle is determined by who has the most total hit points left on their team. In the process of recreating the battle, me and Shade even added it all up, and this Tangrowth had more hit points than his entire remaining roster. So it was kind of a rules win to win by timer in this manner, but I had seen it happen in the season prior and knew that it would work. I understood the rules of how the timer wins. So we end up going to 5-1. So this is our only timer win of the season, and that's great. Shout out to Coach Shade. Of course, his link will be in the description. Can't wait to see y'all next week for a highly anticipated battle. And until then, peace.